Hi, I'm Kimberly C. Paul, and I am here to pitch a book idea called A Life Less Ordinary, working title. And just to give you a little bit of background, I self-published a book called Bridging the Gap, and it was a memoir, or really short stories of how I learned how to live at the bedside of the dying. I spent 17 years in hospice care. Really didn't intend to do that, but the stories were so rich, and as a storyteller and a writer, it was a really rich environment to capture people in the most authentic way. And they became sort of became my greatest teachers in life. So after 17 years, I left and started a podcast, Death by Design, and started writing the book Bridging the Gap, having no clue that that book would lead to the adventure, I guess, that I'm on now, which is driving this RV behind me with about 20 sponsors on it, going town to town to educate people a little bit about dying, but it's really teaching people how to live. And what the book I wanted to pitch is basically in three-part section. A Life Less Ordinary is how my life, an ordinary life, became very rich and extraordinary by discovering the main reason we breathe as human beings, and that's connection. So the book opens up part one as, how did I get where I am? And when I graduated from college, I really wanted to write for television and film, and so I took off with $100 in my pocket and ended up staying on some family member's couch for a while, and landed a gig with Saturday Night Live, not writing, but just interning, apprenticeship, and then into a peon job, but very rich environment for spontaneous writing and seeing how a live television show process went. It was an amazing experience. And then I went over to CBS and worked with their daytime casting, which is sort of, believe it or not, my love. Gloria Monty, which was the executive director of General Hospital, changed how daytime television was viewed when it came to Luke and Laura and Robert Scorpio and all of that really rich storyline, and it really put daytime television just smack dab in the middle of great storytelling, out of the box storytelling. And so she's a really big mentor, and so I was really happy to go into daytime. I went into daytime television with CBS, and they had 2 shows in New York and 2 shows in Los Angeles, and was really fortunate to work with them. After a short time with working with CBS, I was really getting homesick for North Carolina, and so I went back to Wilmington, North Carolina, short stay in Raleigh, but went back to look into doing film and television in my hometown on location. And there was a show in Wilmington, North Carolina called Dawson's Creek that I was attempting to work on, and they were on hiatus, and I ended up interviewing for hospice and thinking it was going to be a temporary job, and temporary became 17 years. So what the book, part one of A Life Less Ordinary, is, it starts off on the Live Well, Die Well tour, but it does flash back in that first segment to really fill in the gaps of how I got where I am, and how I became the driver of this 29-foot RV on a mission to drive to 49 states and change how people faced end of life in memory of those that taught me how to live, as well as a special person that I fell in love with who passed away with cancer, Rob Apple. So that's sort of a flashback. Starts off on the tour with Rob's parents, and it flashes back on how I met Rob and how I got involved with hospice, and kind of brings you up to present day. And part 2 is really on the road, and I see it as more of a Charles Kuralt kind of CBS Sunday Morning tour of the United States, and the people in it, and the lessons that I'm learning. And we're having these deep conversations around campfires about death, about loss, about life, and meeting extraordinary experiences with just as rich stories, and they're affecting me very similar as those who were facing the end of life in hospice. So I want to approach this section, the second section, as sort of a journaling, asking the reader to come with me on tour and experience some of these things. I think the interesting thing that I'm getting the most questions about is like, oh, you're alone. You're a woman and you're alone in a world that maybe not too many women are doing this. And, I come from the generation of the Liz Gilberts and the Cheryl Strayeds, that when you're in search of something, you go find it. And I guess after leaving a career in end of life for 17 years, and my soul sort of in this searching conviction to make a difference, to leave my mark, perhaps. And when you're in your 40s, you start thinking of your own legacy and what kind of difference your life will mean. And it's also a way to honor Rob. So many people are getting to know him through my first book, Bridging the Gaps, and this book will fill in the details that I think a lot of the readers are wanting, the true love story, the details behind that love story, which, as we all know, love stories are not perfect, and that's what I'm interested in telling, is the truth, and how the authentic truth bubbles up and really tells the complete story of how we met and how we fell in love and how we found ourselves at this crossroads, and how I found out he passed away in my hospice years, and which would lead you right into the tour. I think I'm repeating myself a little bit, but the third section is just discovery, is sort of how I'm evolving as a person. And the funny thing is I there's a chance that I might end up exactly where I started, with my desire to write for television. Is there a way that this comes full circle? And I'm back in Hollywood this time, working possibly with CBS, and telling stories. We'll see. So the third section is I call it discovery. To be determined. Maybe things evolve that opens the door to kind of a richer ending than just discovery. But when you haven't lived it yet, sometimes you hope that it will evolve. So that is the book A Life Less Ordinary, and I am really thrilled to be submitting this book and this book proposal, and please follow me on this tour, and hopefully this book will be in the hands of many readers come a couple of years from now. So the tour is supposed to last till January 2021. I'm driving to 49 states and hoping to fly to Hawaii to put the flag in 50 states, and then on to the next adventure. There's a lot of people already asking me, are you writing another book? And you sort of don't want to give that away, because you don't want people to realize that they might become part of the book. So, but it's interesting how bridging the gaps, the lessons that I wrote about are affecting people, and I'm really thrilled to be on this tour and meeting people in every state, and working with clinical people and caregivers and individuals, and hopefully inspiring them to plan for end of life, but to live boldly. We have one shot at this, and I think it's our duty to live it as boldly as possible. So thank you. I am thrilled to be working on this book, and hopefully it's of interest to you, and I'm happy to do anything else that would provoke any interest in supporting this work moving forward. So again, I'm Kimberly Paul. I'm on this Live Well, Die Well tour. You can go to livewelldiewelltour.com, and you can see the projected visits throughout the United States, or you can visit my website, deathbydesign.com, to see my podcast and my bio. And looking forward to really telling this story about life as I live it, and on a very spiritual awakening and a spiritual journey for myself, with my sidekick, Haven, my German Shepherd. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to possibly talking to you further. Thanks.